Hello, everyone. This is Chad Frischman, and I'm on a quest to find the most impactful solutions that not only help to solve climate change, but move humanity closer to a regenerative future. Climate change is the greatest challenge humanity has ever faced. This is not an alien attack or a monster from the deep seas. It is a crisis of our own making. Nearly everything we do as a species, everything our economy produces and consumes, emits greenhouse gases that are warming the planet and causing catastrophic climate change. And climate change impacts everything else, from increasing poverty and food scarcity to climate refugees, devastating biodiversity loss, and destruction to ecosystems and human systems that we are only beginning to glimpse of today. So, we have to change everything. And this is where it gets interesting. If we have to change everything, then it can be an opportunity to build a better future by design, a regenerative future that benefits humanity and the planet. Welcome to Chad's Climate Quest, where we will be talking to some planetary-grade thinkers and doers who are pouring their energy, wisdom, and intellect to solving this great challenge in ways that benefits all. Now, before we get going into our discussion with today's guests, a bit of housekeeping. First, this is the 6th episode of Chad's Climate Quest, and I'll be honest, my first Twitter Space podcast. So please be patient with any technical glitches and smile at all of the gaffes. And feel free to send along constructive feedback to help improve the show. Second, this is a 30-minute discussion. If you have any questions, please tweet them in the thread and join the Discord for further discussion. So thank you all for joining us today. I'm thrilled to welcome you on my Climate Quest. On today's episode, we are welcoming the one and only Vandana Hart, creator and host of We Speak Dance, a global movement, Netflix series, and social impact platform that celebrates diversity and self-expression, connecting people all around the world to select solutions for our planet's greatest challenges through, you guessed it, dance. She was also the judge on Kenya's So You Think You Can Dance, and is a United Nations Global Ambassador for Women's Rights. Hi, Vandana. It's great to have you on the show, and thank you for coming along my Climate Quest.
Beautiful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I remember, Vandana, when I first met you in Rio earlier this year with the wonderful Future Horizon crew, the Future Quest crew that are actually hosting our podcast today. And I was really taken away by, your ability to bring so many people together on the dance floor and taking that position, coveted by some, feared by many, at the center of a circle, dancing their hearts out. So I want to know, when did you learn the power of dance and your superpower of bringing people together with joy?
That's a great question. And thank you so much for bringing the circle culture piece right off the bat, because I think the only way that we're going to really move towards climate solutions and living in a place sustainably for all of us is in the circle economy, the circle culture, regenerative systems. And the way that we would practice that for thousands of years is around the fires, dancing and singing together, building that culture of oneness. The songs and the dances were all dedicated to nature and animals, and it's part of our ancient education. And we've lost that as we come to cities. So kind of witnessing in the 100 countries I've traveled, all these different dance cultures, both new and old. If you're dancing with the Maasai in Kenya, or if it's a hip hop battle in New York City, that's always in a circle. And it's creating this kind of ceremonial experience of becoming one and dancing. And with my years at the UN, I never experienced a sense of trust and that happens within seconds of dancing together. It would take normally years to develop in verbal conversation. So really, I believe that we need to tap into the arts, and music and dance are two of our most universal international languages that really cut across all of our differences and get people excited, take their full attention, full presence to witness what's really happening in front of them. And it's also the best moment where people feel their full potential and their full power. And then when you deliver a message in that moment, they're much more willing to receive it. So a lot of the climate activism has been talking about the problem and how devastating it will be and that the world is ending. Yes. And how do we create a culture that sustains people's attention and energy and life force? Well, music and dance is one of those natural storytelling strategies around the fire that everyone's full is captured. So when I was working at the UN, leading programs in 50 countries for women and girls' rights and reimagining cities, I started combining dance with program design workshops. And the outcome was so powerful. Instead of starting from the problem and what's wrong and the victimhood and the vulnerability, we would start from a place of being fully powerful and fully human. And when we dance and sing together. So this is where I made this connection between the vital international language of dance across cultures to be the divine bullet for not only unity but for the consciousness of our planet to become one.
I love that. I absolutely love that. What an amazing story. Working at the UN and like seeing. I worked at the UN for a few years as well, at UNESCO and at the International Fund for Agricultural Development. And those folks, they're not easy to get on the dance floor. They're not easy to get out of the. You have to break through some barriers, right? And you get to know them for years, and you have to know them through the bureaucracies, right? And there's that, right, where you have so many different parts of these great big institutions doing so many different things. They're not talking to each other. They're not actually communicating. I recall, working with the Food and Agriculture Organization, there's two different departments, one working on food waste and one working on diets, and they didn't even talk to each other. Do you believe that? And that's what's happening here. And I'm wondering, like, bringing people together in dance is a way to communicate on a different level, right? It breaks down those barriers. And I really love that you're doing that in such a powerful, transformative way. What are some success stories that you've had? What are some of the accomplishments that you've had with We Speak Dance that you see, like specifics? If you see, when I got that director of this department to go to be with this group here, suddenly something happened. Did any of that happen for you yet?
Yeah, there's been so many moments, and really, We Speak Dance is a narrative that it's my life. I'm putting my soul and my heart into the world, and I think when we put our true essence out into the world and make that a movement, then it's really easy for us to join forces when it's the most true, authentic version of yourself. And that's really what We Speak Dance is. And I think in that, it's been able to attract such magical people all over the world to continue dancing together. And not only that, really reimagining cities, reimagining nature, and how we can live harmoniously together. One of the case studies that I'm most proud of is on our Netflix show. We have an episode in Lebanon, and I found the best hip hop dancer in Lebanon, and he's half Syrian, half Lebanese. And he grew up and he wasn't allowed to dance, and he would do it secretly and train secretly. And then he ended up becoming one of the top hip hop dancers. So I asked him, I said, would you be willing to come to a refugee camp with me and share hip hop there? At this particular camp, there's no arts education. So these people are coming from Syria and, and they're just surviving. So we go to this camp and we go and we film for the Netflix show. So you can go on and watch the show and see us dance with these children in the camp. And then he fell in love with the community. And I asked him, I was like, well, will you continue going? And he said, yes. So every week for the last 2 years since the show's been on, he's been sharing dance, not only with this camp, that became like the UN ambassador of dance across all of the camps, and started collaborating with governments and becoming a spokesperson. And he called me and he said, Vandana, what I'm teaching, I'm not teaching dance. I'm teaching the girls that they deserve to exist and that they're powerful. And it was beautiful to see that local leader in a city that never understood the power of his dance to go to a community and realize that he's a superhero and that he transformed the lives of any of these young people in so many ways. So this is one beautiful case study that came from, filming for a TV show and then having there be these programs cover the country quite organically. And, with the UN and with many organizations, you need to have budgets and have things, fund for those things to exist. But this was quite organic. And because passion and the design was from this authentic, this is the power of community. This is the power of what Future Horizon is, is really, people just want to be there. So this is what's missing. We have this need to, come to conferences and business meetings and this, but if we can create a culture around climate where people want to be there, guess what? Then we can build the movement that's sticky, that people are begging to come to the event versus, that anxiety of like, oh, I have to go to another talk or this. So it's really up to us to be more creative, be more soulful and joyful in this journey in getting everyone engaged and caring about our precious planet.
There are two words that you just said that, all of your words, frankly, but there are two words that really resonate with me right because question I have for you. Joyfully yearning for the future. Because I think that missing ingredient in the climate world, and not just the climate world, frankly, but when we talk about many of the other challenges that we're facing as a species of our own creation, one of the missing ingredients is joy. And I approach my climate quest and my quest to a regenerative future as a joyful journey. I talk about this. I've been talking about this for so long, and people sometimes they smile, but they don't quite get it. They don't quite get how you can go on this journey trying to solve climate change, ocean acidification, and biodiversity loss, poverty, et cetera, joyfully. And sadly, I think that lack of joy, that lack of inspiration and motivation to see this as an opportunity, it leads to apathy, and apathy to the status quo. No, okay. What advice though do you have for people to break out of that sort of debilitating sense of fear, urgency, problem to tackle these big challenges with joy? What are some advice you have for people to get
What
work
a
on
great
personal areas?
what a great question. So personally, like working on ending violence against women and girls for 7 years with the UN in many countries, it's easy to start to feel hopeless, and it's easy to feel like it's never ending, and like is what I'm doing really making a difference? And of course we did like very fancy impact evaluations and surveys, and things, okay, good, things are moving in this direction, but is that enough? Like how are we really shifting the culture in a sustainable way? Sustainability is not just about climate. Sustainability is a culture around our planet and how we take each step. So it's really about how do we take each step, and that's in your local, engagement in your community and your global footprint. And is there a way that you can take each step in your activism, in your work, in your companies that generates more joy inside the culture? Dancing every day, starting your day with dance. So I met with one of the like most famous health and wellness advisors, and knows all the biohacking and all of the most sexy methods of meditation and workouts and he's worked with everyone, and he goes, well, the thing that I actually do each day is I go to the basement, play loud music, and just dance. And I think this cathartic release, and then also just getting a state of joy and then sharing that frequency with other people, gets us in a state of creativity, of openness, of receptivity, and also our authentic leadership. Really getting down, like showing up for the causes that we're all, fighting for, with a vibrancy, with a joy. I've interviewed the Mandela family for Mandela's 100th, and they talked about they danced to the front lines of revolution.
I
And
love
so
that.
this is going to be a scary process. There's going to be many more challenges ahead, and as a global community, can we dance through those challenges and use this language of dance to plant these seeds of hope, to interweave our hearts, to inspire each other to know, that to remind each other that we need to keep going. And I'm very proud of my team. We're working with incredible company Hukuiku on developing an app to inspire the world to dance. And the idea is for the whole world to dance every day, and not just to dance for themselves, but to dedicate that dance as a prayer for the planet. So each of our dance experiences will link to a social impact cause, including many climate change initiatives, to draw that awareness that the way we take each step, the way we move, can move the planet.
I love it, and I cannot wait for this app to be out there in the world and to sign up for it. I'm also thinking to myself, I don't know if we have time, but I almost feel like we should with Chad's Climate Quest take a few minutes and start. Maybe at the end we can all have everybody get up and dance, because I
We
think
definitely
that's
need a
what
dance break.
we need a dance break.
Well,
Let's do that.
right. But so I think one of the most fun ways to do a dance break with like your companies is, something that We Speak Dance does at conferences and gatherings and events and festivals. And I call it like joining our global movement. Join the We Speak Dance movement and dance for the planet. So it's We Dance for the Planet. You can hashtag your videos doing this. And I would love for this group to do that. And it's making a catwalk performance, just like a diva strut anywhere. It could be ideally in nature, but you create this catwalk for the planet and fully express yourself in your fullest joy and your fullest authenticity, and dedicate that dance to our planet. And so we're creating this global catwalk across the world that, comes from Vogue culture, this fierce Black gay underground scene where the voices are really heard through these movements. So this is the kind of fierce power and energy that we need to build a global movement. So we're super, super excited about that. And I would love, at the end of this experience for people at home to go outside and to strut their stuff, play their favorite song, make a dance for the planet.
Oh man, I love that. I love it. And let me tell you, I walk most of my life as if I'm on a catwalk. I'll tell you that. I try. Oh, I
You're
like
a full-time
especially.
catwalk, aren't you, Eddie?
I try everywhere, everywhere. And I even my accountant does this, and I love it. I have this wonderful accountant who every time we meet, she wears a different kind of costume to like break through just the fun, playful costume as we have our Zoom chat together. And periodically we'll start our accounting session before we dive into financial models for Regen Intel. We'll dive into well, she'll start dancing. And we'll just do like party dancing in the middle of like our meeting. And it's so transformative, can break through something like, a financial model stock and dance. And it really transforms things. So I really applaud what you're doing on a grand scale. And maybe we all find the time to go out and dance our hearts out. And I wanted to ask that you bring up this word authenticity a lot, and I really love it. It's something that part of my daily mantra and is authenticity, integrity, empathy, and compassion. And one of the things that I think are so important in the climate space. And of course, going beyond the climate space to creating that regenerative future is a regenerative economy, but a regenerative social system where authenticity, integrity, empathy, compassion are the core of how we operate together. So I think it's really important. I want to invite you to talk a little bit more about what does authenticity and integrity mean for you? Because there's a lot of folks who aren't sure about what that word actually means. Do you want to give us a stab at what you mean by authenticity and integrity?
Oh, I love that. I love that question. I think it's so much about building trust.
Mm,
And when we show up in our fullest self, then it gives others the permission to be themselves. And I think you can't hide who you are when you dance.
mm,
And what one of our greatest challenges it is right now is trust in our leaders and our governments and our private sector to make good decisions, right? Like trust is at an all-time low, and there's like lots of conspiracy theories, and this next generation, especially Gen Z, is like, what is going on with our planet? We can't trust our leaders, our elders, our parents generation to manage this planet, because look what they're doing, they're destroying it, right?
mm-hmm.
So when we dance, you can't hide who you are. And that's why I think dance leaders are the perfect formula for authenticity, heart leadership, and joy. And I think create this instant sense of trust. If you're willing to dance and sing in front of people, then you feel like you know them better. You know their essence, you know their soul. And I think this piece is vital for us to collectively build trust as community and to build incredibly strong coalitions.
Mm-hmm.
So within many organizations and companies and governments and UN, there's lots of competition. So if we overcome this and
Yeah.
really show up in our authentic power and dance, then I think we also creatively find ways to see that, wow, there's so many opportunities to collaborate. Actually, who
Uh-huh.
you are is so similar to who I am. You know what? Instead of us creating these two projects, let's join forces and join. And this is what's really needed. All of the people working on ocean need to come together. All the people working on solar come
Yeah.
together, and let's and strategically map out how we can solve these problems together. And I think the music and dance and coming around the circle and recognizing and looking into each other's eyes and seeing who this person really is builds that trust to then be able to create that golden circle and link the next one across the whole earth.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And I think you're spot on. Exactly right. What we need in this space is that sense of community and transparency, because we use the word collaborate all the time, and too rarely are we actually collaborating. And part of it's the system itself that prevents it, part of it's our own fears. But if we can be transparent and authentic in that space, that's the pathway to we can really collaborate in ways that are benefiting both for everyone, mutual benefit for everyone. But there is something that I think sometimes that can be co-opted. Sometimes it could be performative. Sometimes it could be serving another purpose. I mean, I believe art, media, language, and performance, dance and music are essential ingredients to changing mindsets, but that can be used for whatever direction one takes. I mean, just as a little background for myself, I mean, a little known fact is 14 years ago, I was an art historian prior to entering the field of climate conservation and human rights. Working on art as a medium for changing institutions. But we have seen this art in all of its forms use of propaganda to serve a lot of bad behaviors, as well as some good, of course. But in your opinion, what are the key ingredients necessary for art, dance, and these really powerful cultural tools to serve the good of the planet and people, and not just an advertising media ploy by big business. And as we've seen, oil companies using art, media, performance as a way to mask what they're actually doing.
Great. Yeah, I totally agree. So I just want everyone to like sit back and imagine the scenario. Imagine Mandela, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Che Guevara, Mahatma Gandhi sitting in a circle around a fire. And they're reflecting on their lives and the impact that they've made in the waves they've created in culture and history and politics and economics and identity. And if someone to ask them, what did you forget to do? What's missing? What if you could come back, what would you do? My guess is that they'd say, let's train our local leaders and invest in them. So it's not one person that we have our faith in. It's 100 that then turns into 1,000, that then turns into an unbreakable group of 1,000,000 that will defend this planet, not defend a nation, defend a border, not defend meaningless corporate interests, but really defend this planet. That's what I think they talk about. And that's what We Speak Dance is on a mission to do, is to support those local leaders, connect them with people who are in this group, connect them with our communities that have the solutions so they can be the spokespersons for these really important causes and really be the spokesperson for the solutions for our planet. And they have the fire, they have the passion, they know that the future is on their shoulders and that we're not doing a good job. So this is, one of my superpowers is finding these young people and seeing that potential. And I think that's our job as a global community, is to really look out for those young artists and inspire them and give them training and give them tools and have them join a community to be part of this, to train them to be the next generation that leads a new culture, that defines a new earth that is in harm, and then connecting them together as a coalition. And this is what We Speak Dance's plan is with dancers and musicians around the world, is instead of hearing Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt speak as UN ambassadors, we have these local level ambassadors that then become global leaders.
Amazing. Yeah, that sort of pathway to the next generation of leadership in that regenerative future today, right? Like, how do we create that and the mechanisms to really embed regenerative mindset and thinking for the benefit of the planet? This year, speaking of leaders coming together, intergenerational leaders coming together, as they do so often every year at COPs, Conference of Parties for Climate Change, this year is going to be in Egypt. I want to just have a quick question. What are your expectations first? What are your expectations for this COP? And two, there's going to be a culture at COP space, a special space dedicated to highlight arts, culture, and heritage as solutions. Will you be there? And what do you think the role of culture can play in these negotiations and gatherings of leaders from all over the world?
Great. Yeah, I was at COP26. I had a speech there and made the whole audience dance and brought local leaders from the community in the city as well as internationally. Dancers who've had campaigns that have reached millions to have impact in very important solutions for the climate. And this year, I'm still deciding if I'm to be on, because I really want to see the indigenous leadership. I want to see the women's leadership. I want to see these communities really be the decision makers. So I think a part of me, my heart hurts each time I go to these global forums, because the inner circle should be the outer circle.
Right.
And so it's wonderful that we have all these beautiful side events, but I would really love to see a shift in decision making power in these forums. So I'm still deciding if I'll attend, if I wish it exist or not, of course, to exist. But also I think getting more creative in how we give more power and influence to these groups that are living the way that we're trying to model, right? Like the people who are already there,
Right.
who are already protecting most of our nature, and the real champions that have dedicated their lives to this, their prayers to this, each step to this.
Oh, wonderful words and actions. And I want to just pin for you, because I think what you said there is so important, because I often go to the COPs, and I've been working with indigenous peoples and indigenous rights and well-being for 14 years, well before actually I was working with Drawdown and now with regenerative intelligence. And, what I found in going to the COPs is, indigenous peoples often come to COPs, or at least viewed by so many of the people there as playing a role in performance, transferring of cultural knowledge, which does play an important role, or advocating or activism on the streets, which does play an important role, and sometimes having a voice at certain tables, which does play a role. And it was that actually experience over many years of going to COP that I decided through Regen Intel, Regenerative Intelligence, my new project, that we're going to launch a special initiative working with indigenous peoples to aggregate, I should say, knowledge about indigenous technologies and practices that are real climate solutions, because they exist. They're just not often seen or respected or recognized to be at the same playing field as a solar panel, for example, in Germany or something. So we want to really create this new project initiative to be a pathway in collaboration and co-creation with indigenous leaders from every continent, every generation from around the world, to be a pathway to come to the COP, not just as performative or as activists, but as climate solutionists. And I would love to invite you to be part of that, Vandana, because I think there's a lot that is resonating with what you're saying and how we can incorporate that into groups and COPs in the future. So thank you for your wisdom and inspiration. I have one more question because I know we're a little already over time, Vandana, so I hope you can bear with me and all those who are listening. I ask this of all of my guests on Chad's Climate Quest. And so I want to ask you, I'm on a quest to not only solve global warming, but also really shift our system from its core to create one that goes beyond sustainability, because sustainability is not sustainable when we think about equity, justice, and inclusion. Specifically, when we're talking, no doubt, no small measure, talking about indigenous peoples and women around the world. So for my final question, though, what is your marker on that future, your vision of a regenerative future that we need to have that goes beyond climate? Can you give us in a few words to close out this session? What is Vandana Hart's vision for that future?
Beautiful. You're so creative. I love it. I would love to do a global catwalk with you across Egypt and the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So that's part of my vision, is definitely a global catwalk where we're dancing together across the earth. And I see these 3 golden circles. On the outside, we have our indigenous leaders holding the space for our planet, drumming. The Hopi prophecy, 8,000 drummers drum and our world goes into harmony. And then on the next row, we have our dancers and musicians, our creators, our youth, who we're going to train to be our next generation of leaders. And then on the inner circle, we have the existing leadership that is there to transform and learn from these outer circles and listen and be guided. And this humble new lotus flower of the world, where we listen and allow for our creators, our musicians, our dancers, our indigenous leaders, and our leaders by choice, the leaders that rise naturally from our communities to really drive local and global solutions in one dance together. This is definitely a vision that I keep having of our world, and I would love to have that Cirque du Soleil for the planet experience live trickle everywhere and across all spaces in nature to inspire people and to remind them that they are in nature.
I am on that journey with you, arm in arm. Thank you, Vandana Hart, for that beautiful vision, words of wisdom, and all that you do in this world to connect people. Your superpowers are mighty. They are mighty powers that are used in service to countless people around the world and for the world, for the planet. It's been a real honor and joy for me on my journey, on my joyful journey, to be here with you today. And I'm looking forward to linking arms step in step as we create the regenerative future of tomorrow today. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me and all that you do. And I really feel that this is a connection of hearts and in mind second. So thank you for your creative leadership, thoughtfulness, and the beautiful nuance that you bring and interweave into your work. I'm a new fan.
Thank you. And thank you all who are listening today and will be listening to the recording to this 6th episode of Chad's Climate Quest, a quest to create a regenerative future. Well, that's it for today's episode of Chad's Climate Quest. Stay tuned for our next episode, when I will be talking to another planetary-grade thinker and doer, implementing real solutions to create a regenerative future. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm thrilled to welcome you on my Climate Quest.